Today is NCLEX day. We're loading up in the car right now to head to Helena, Montana. Yes, Helena, Montana. We do not live in Helena, Montana. We're about 8 hours from there. But with everything with the coronavirus and stuff going on, that's the closest place that we could get a testing time. So we're heading there right now. We're gonna pick up my sister because we went in the same program. There it is, game day. You ready?
Recording the whole thing.
Everything, bro. How you feeling?
I'm very excited.
You very excited?
Yes.
Hey!
That's how I'm going to announce when I pass.
Are you ready? We made it. No, I'm just kidding. It's only been an hour. How's everybody feeling so far?
Better with coffee.
Better with coffee. I like that. We got roughly 6.5 hours left to go. So we made it to Montana. It's probably super loud here. We're currently at a rest stop, as you can see. And it is gorgeous in Montana. We just crossed over the Montana border, so we're still probably 4 hours roughly away from the location that we're going to. So we're gonna keep at it. Time, Jenna, how you feel?
I don't know. Good, but, you know, good. Like a champion.
That's better. What's going on, everybody? Joe here again. Welcome back to the channel. I'm so pumped to see all your smiling faces. Today we're talking about the NCLEX, which stands for Not Cool Long Exam. Wait, that's not it. It stands for National Council Licensure Examination. This is the test you're going to take when you graduate from nursing school to actually get your license. Some people also refer to this as your boards. One of the things you should know right up front about the NCLEX is that it's what's considered a computer adaptive test, or a CAT. Now what this means is that as you take questions and as you answer them right or wrong, the computer will adapt the next question based on how well you did on the previous one. So if you put it on a sliding scale, for example, as you answer questions correctly, you go from what would be considered essentially the midpoint, and as you answer them correctly, you periodically go up in difficulty. Now the reason they do that is because the more questions you answer on a computer adaptive test, the more confident they can be that you understand that level of information. So the goal, obviously with the NCLEX, is to make sure that you have a minimum competency to practice in the nursing field, preferably without harming anybody. So as you take the NCLEX, the questions will get progressively and progressively harder until ultimately you end up getting about 50% wrong. As you do that, the computer is adapting and its confidence in its assessment of you goes up. So what it's doing is, over the period of the exam, it's going to narrow you down to a window of right and wrong answers that should give them a threshold of knowledge for you. Now, what that makes you feel like, unfortunately, as the test taker, is that you've gotten 50% or more of the questions wrong. Because at some point you reach a place where every other question, roughly, you're getting wrong. because you're at a level of information that is higher than you need to be, hopefully, and they're adapting. They're going up when you get it right, and if you get that one wrong, they're coming back down, and they're slowly bringing that gap to where they have a high confidence of the level of information that you have and competency. Now, the downside to that for you is that you feel like you failed. The moment you walk away, get it in your head now, you're going to feel like you failed, whether you passed or not. So initially, I want to talk about some similarities and differences between the old NCLEX and the new NCLEX, but the reality is that's not relevant for most of you, because if you're watching this, you probably haven't taken the NCLEX yet. That being said, I'm going to focus on the next generation NCLEX that everybody will be taking from this point forward. So first things first, according to the NCSBN, which stands for the National Council State Board of Nursing, as of April 1st, 2023, the only NCLEX will be the next generation NCLEX. So aside from it being very similar to the past NCLEX, there are some differences that I want to touch base on. The main thing is that you will take new types of questions. The new exam is significantly different. This exam uses clinical reasoning as its basis for competency. So some of the benefits of that are that you're going to get partial credit for some of your select all that apply questions, which for anybody who's already taken the NCLEX, that's nuts. One of the biggest worries when you're taking the NCLEX is that when you used to take it, if you had a select all that apply and there were 6 options and 4 of them were the correct answer, and you selected 3 out of the 4 that were correct, you got the whole question wrong. You got no credit for that at all. The new generation is saying you should get credit for that. You did know the majority of it, and that should at least add to the level that they're going to give you in terms of competency. So that's a huge plus. The multiple choice, the multi-answer questions are all going to give you partial credit for the things you get right. Some of them are going to give you partial credit for the correct ones, and then they'll take off for negative ones. And some of them, like if you can only select a certain amount, it will just give you credit for the ones that you get right. It won't take away, it doesn't balance it out. But for example, if you have 5 options and 3 of them are correct, but you have the ability to select all of them, if you were to select 4 out of 5, 3 of them being correct and 1 of them being incorrect, you'd score 2 points because they would give you 3 for the correct answer and they would take away 1 for the incorrect answer. But on questions where you can only select the amount that is pertinent to the question, meaning you would only be able to select 3, you wouldn't even be able to click on 5, it would only credit you, it would not take anything away. So if you selected 2 out of the 3 that were correct and 1 that was incorrect, it would give you 2 points. It would not give you 2 minus the 1 you got wrong, if that makes sense. So they're really trying to gear it towards more of a clinical reasoning-based competency rather than just pure answering questions, which is a huge benefit. Although this is just the 30,000-foot view, I want to talk a little bit about what to expect in terms of questions. As you probably already know, there are many multiple answer questions, select all that apply, multiple choice, all those things are going to be similar. The 3 new types of questions that are going to be on the next generation NCLEX are case study questions, bow tie questions or diagrams, and trend questions. The case study questions are very in-depth. You can actually look on the NCSBN website and pull up videos that will show you examples of these case studies and what they're going to look like. I think it's incredible. Typically, they have about 18 questions for every case study, and you'll get up to 3 case studies in your entire NCLEX. So just kind of prepare for that. The idea with these case studies is that you can go through multiple sections of data and then answer questions according to that data, and the data stays there the entire time. Meaning if you get 3 questions in and you read something that makes you remember, oh, this thing up here actually wasn't what I thought it was, you can change that before you submit the whole case study. Now, like the NCLEX has always been, once you submit that question, you can never go back to it. So understand that as you practice for the NCLEX, you may be inclined to say, oh, now I remember, I'm going to go back and answer that correctly. But the reality is, if you get it wrong on the NCLEX and you hit submit, there's nothing you can do about it. It's already gone. Don't even think about it again. So the case studies are one of the new questions. The second type of new question is the bow tie questions, which essentially is a concept map. If you've ever built a concept map or like a flow chart or an algorithm, it's essentially a diagram-based question that allows you to associate understanding. It should be really neat, although I've never seen or taken any of those questions myself. The last type, which is probably the most simple, but possibly for some of you the most difficult, is the trend questions. Essentially, they're looking to see, what would you do? How would you see this patient trending? What's your understanding of the disease process and the direction it's going to go? A few details for the NCLEX in general. The NCLEX will be up to 5 hours long. Hopefully it's not that long, but it should give you some sort of relief knowing that you can take up to 5 hours. The next generation test will be a minimum of 85 questions, and it can go as high as 150 questions. Now that differs from, I believe, the last couple of years where it was 75 questions and 145. That being said, the first 15 are still, they don't count. The first 15 don't count at all. Those 15 questions are used by the NCSBN to record as data and help them change the NCLEX questions down the road. Those don't count towards your grade at all. You will get up to 3 case studies, 18 questions or items per case study. They're not all, in-depth individual questions, but you might have a 3 or 4 or 5 part question that's about the data you're looking at in the case study. And ultimately, each case study will have 18 of those pieces, which leaves you with a remainder of between 52 and 117 regular standalone questions. That includes the bow ties, the trends, and then all of the other ones that you're aware of, the multiple choice, the select all that apply, everything else. One key thing about the NCLEX that everybody should know, and if you don't already, make sure you write this down. The number of questions that you answer is not directly correlated to whether you passed or failed. You can take 150 questions and pass. You can take 150 questions and fail. You can take 85 questions and pass. You can take 85 questions and fail. The idea is the computer is adapting every question. And when it gets to a point where its confidence in where you're at is very tight, it's very high, right? There's a very small margin. When it gets to that point, if that piece or when it gets to that point, if that point is in the passing zone, you pass. Whether that's at 85 questions, 100 questions, 125, or 150. Now, when that confidence level reaches a high enough point, if that point is in the failing side, you will fail. Whether that's at 85 questions, 100, 125, etc. Now, where a lot of people fall is that confidence level gets very high and that margin gets very small, but you're still, technically, that margin still could be on either side of the line. So you'll continue to answer questions, which means you could get to the very last question and you could be on the passing side of that scale and they'll pass you. You can get to the very last question, be on the failing side of that scale, and they'll fail you. So the last section of this video, I'll just touch on really fast, which is how I studied for the NCLEX. I studied for the NCLEX using Kaplan, which is a very well-known organization that helps study for licensure exams, helps study for driver's license exam. I mean, they have just a huge suite of offerings. What I used, obviously, was the NCLEX version of it. In my opinion, now having taken it and used multiple types of testing softwares, in my opinion, Kaplan at the time was the most accurate to what it actually felt like to take the test. The questions looked the same, they were formatted the same, the feeling was the same, the questions were very similar. It was amazing. Really, what you're studying at that point is how to take that type of exam. There will be some things that you touch on in terms of the actual information and like patho and farm and all of that stuff. There will be some of that stuff that you're going to want to sharpen up on, but the reality is at this point you should know enough to take the NCLEX in terms of the actual information. What you're really studying, in my opinion, is the format and how to get past computer adaptive testing, because it's very difficult to take a test like that, especially if you've never done it before, because it psychologically messes with you. While you're taking an exam, to know with a pretty good amount of confidence that you're getting every other question wrong is terrifying. But ultimately, that's the goal. You just want to make sure you're on the passing side of the scale when that starts happening. That being said, if you have any questions, drop them down below in the comments. If you have any comments, drop them down below. What I would also love, if you're already a nurse, if you would be willing to share maybe a quick snippet of your experience down below so that the nurses or nursing students that are watching this might get an idea of your perspective, that would be awesome. This is my perspective on the NCLEX. Down in the description, I'm also going to put some links to the NCSBN website and some of the things you can look at a little bit deeper that might take a little bit longer to get a better understanding about the NCLEX, the next generation specifically. Other than that, drop a comment, drop a like, let me know if you have any questions, and let me know if you have any videos you'd like me to make as I start making videos again. Thanks for joining us.